Hey everyone, welcome back. I've spent another week on Bardan's Cosmo. I've got the lower quarter made and the taillight section. Top section to finish the quarter off, and I've got the body line welded in and all this welded together. Still a lot of planishing to go to really finish this off. Got to do the door edge and the top return for the roof. Also made the lower valance top and started on the nose cone, just doing manageable pieces while I learn how to use the wheel and get these shapes correct before I move into bigger and bigger and bigger panels as I develop my skills. So I'll show you how I made those. And just when you think this is metal, nah, sealer, stretchy metal. Okay, so templated off the good Cosmo, the black one, and yeah, going to transfer it to some new steel now and make up 3 lower quarters. Okay, so a few passes on the bead roller just to get the line ran on there, and now I'm just ready to start shrinking the wheel arch edge to give it the curve it needs. So shrink this edge here, it'll wrap this around, slight bit of shrink up here to give it some more curve, and then I have to shrink this edge here to wrap it around under. So it's a good idea just to go to the car, routinely check it, because it's so easy to shrink it too far and just makes it world of pain for yourself. So just check it, see how much it's easier to go little by little than to go too far and then have to stretch it back. Right, so shape is roughed out now, it's all correct. Now I've got to shrink this edge down, start wrapping it under the quarter. Okay, so shrunk the back side now, pretty much ready to make the rest of the corner piece here where I'm going to join it up. It's going to be a pretty tricky shape, this one, with the exhaust cut out as well, so I might make that first and then see how far I can chop this piece back. So yeah, pretty strange shape under there, how there is a faint line that wraps around the corner. So just got a little bit of tweaking to do on that line just to bring it around a bit closer. So yeah, got the rear edge shrunk down to start wrapping around the rear of the car, and just the front, it's all roughed in. So yeah, because we've got no reference point on this car, I'm going to make it spot on with the black one and just make some little tabs down from the bumper hole just to hold it in the right spot for the rear here, and then I know I can work off that. Okay, so a few clamps on there, shrunk the top edge. I've got a piece that runs about here, so I don't really have to worry about that top too much. Just got to make a bracket that will help me locate this at the right height, because yeah, on the Bardan's Cosmo we don't have any of this area at all to reference off, so I'd rather know that the heights are correct for the back side and the front side. I can do that by referencing off the body line down, and yeah, here if I just make like a little bolt-on bracket, it'll just hold it, and happy days, I can make that corner piece. Alright, so my little tab to hold from the bumper bracket to set the heights, and that way I can just get everything else now to make this piece off the black car and then join it all up. So just rolled the faint bead roll line on the bottom, and it's got to stretch this area in some more, same as this, got to go in, and describe the line so that that's my join, and I'll chop the top off here. There is another fold behind this, little faint fold, it's in the center here, so realistically I probably could get that, just leave it up in one piece, but I'm going to make this piece anyway, so I'll just cut it off. Okay, so just got the both overlapping at the moment so that I can start to trim this edge down. This is where I'm going to do my join. So I'm not sure how it's going to go with it being overlapped inside this taillight section. It might be a tight fit to get the quarter actually on over the top, so I might actually have to trim out the taillight section there if I have trouble, but a bit more stretching here to make that meet, and should be good if I trim this edge off because this is tight to the quarter. Now I can't tighten the lip up just yet, otherwise it'll never fit. So just got it all close now. I'm going to lap the quarter over the top, mark it, and hopefully join them together. Okay, so rear face is on. Just clear coat around. It's a bit of damage here, so it's obviously a bit wobbly. Ready to overlap the quarter on top and describe where I need to trim and join. Okay, so that's just 2 screws at the top and just naturally resting over the top. Minimal pressure there to get them to join. So touch more stretching in this area to get them to join. We should be good, ready to start welding them together. Okay, that's about as tight as I can get the join. So start just stitching it together and working my way along to the bottom. But what I've learnt here is get your join as good as possible, otherwise it just makes it harder for you in the end. If you've got pressure on it, holding it, it's just going to just want to go everywhere. So it's better to just take the time, get your joins perfect. Okay, so I've got a few tacks the whole way along now. I'm going to pull it back off and planish it all nice before I fully weld it. Still a bit of wobblies at the bottom here. Little hammer getting a workout today. Stretching that weld back out. Okay, so weld is just hit with the 80 on the flapper and then stretched right out. It's feeling pretty good. A little bit of a blend here to do still, but I'm going to put it on the car just to make sure we're all going in the right direction still. It's coming up alright. Okay, so it's fitting pretty good. Pretty happy with that. A bit more stretch in just this corner here to make this piece. So yeah, it's fitting pretty good. Before I hit it with an 80, I'm just going to go through these little craters here. Don't really need to, but I'll do those while I do the Cleco holes. May as well, I'm here. It's good practice to be fussier every time I do something. Alrighty, so just got all the craters filled now. I left the Cleco holes just for reference. I can make this piece now. After I give this a sand up, I just got to pull it off, planish any lows that I've created. So that will do for now. So you can see with the 80, once you hit it, you can see all the tiny little lows everywhere along it. So it just needs more planishing, more hours spent on it. But I just want to get it hanging on the car so I can make this next piece. Cowboy technology. I want the indent for the bumper. So yeah, just roughing out the top edge for the boot lid. Got everything else roughed in at the moment. Just a lot more stretching on all the edges to pull it all around. Okay, so I've stitched it all together, just with little tic tacs everywhere. And as you can see with the light, it's just wobbly along the join. So it's something I'm going to have to planish out. It's really something that I struggle with as well, so I'm hoping to learn a lot this year of how to get everything planished up nice and as less wobbles as possible, which means less filler in turn. So just sitting on the ground at the moment and dressing up all the areas to weld. And because I'm inexperienced in massive panels like this and planishing in general, I'm just going to do small sections at a time. I'm just going to dress this area up, weld it, and then planish it all up and just focus on small little areas so it doesn't get away from me and ruin the whole thing. Okay, so just hammer and dolly on this area now. I'm pretty confident it's ready to weld, so I'll weld that area up. I don't want to use the machines because even the weight of the panel and my inexperience, I'll ruin this in seconds. So I'll just do it by hand. Yeah, it takes longer, but it's a part of learning. So just focusing on the joint itself. I'm pretty happy with being able to weld that at the moment. And I can focus on dents here once I put it back in that little die I made for the body line, same as the front guard. Okay, so I just ran this weld here, so I'm just going to plunge that up now by hand, stretch the weld back out, and then buzz it off with 80 and hopefully dress it back up to where it was before I welded it. Okay, so I've just knocked back the top of the welds and just given it a planish along, ready to weld this one, and I'll leave that one to last. I'm going to try and do this and across the front there, so I'll probably do the back first. Just got it here in the light where I can really see what's going on with the reflections. Okay, so bottom's welded, just hung it back on the car, just give it a final look over. Seems to be all in the right spot still, so just checking along my joins. I'm just going to TIG it while it's on the car. So I tried to do a time lapse, but my phone ran out of memory, so I had to delete some photos and videos. But all welded up now. Just did a few plug holes as well that had the clecos in. Now hopefully I can pull it off and do my best to planish it all back up. Okay, so welded, just quickly nipped down with an 80 and then just wire wheeled it. So it's at least a bit more reflective now. I haven't got the weld has in the way. So I can see what I'm doing much better now. I can see the reflection of my hand where it's all wobbly. What needs to happen. So hung back on the car after planishing by hand. No machine work on this because I'm too scared that I'm going to ruin it. So I'm just going to hit it with 80 on the whizzer to knock down the weld tops, you can see. And then I'll probably pull it off again and planish it again. So I just used the 80 on the sander and that shows me all my lows. Everywhere it's not the same color as this is low. I've got to go along and pick all those up the whole way along it now. And then this is where you just spend, the more time you spend, the better it's going to look. So yeah, I could probably get away with doing filler straight over this, it's fine. It's like not even half a millimeter, but this is for my own personal progress. After hours I'll spend just playing with this because I just want to get better and better at my finish. So yeah, off the car now and just picking up all my lows with the hammer and dolly. Doing it by hand. I'm still too scared to put it in the machine and ruin it. That'll just really piss me off. So I'll just battle away by hand after hours and just see how good I can get this. And then I'm going to put the body line on top of that Peter flat bar, same as I did with the front guard, and just sharpen it all up. It's a bit wobbly in a few spots. So I've just run the file over a few areas. This is where my lack of experience will show big time, is me trying to planish this thing straight with no real idea of what I'm doing. So it's just a self-learning process, the painful way. And yeah, way too shit scared to put it in the machine and ruin the whole thing, so I'll just painstakingly do it by hand. Alright, fuck it, I'm sick of doing it by hand. I'm going to try and put it in the machine and probably ruin it, but hey, whatever. Suffering its first scratches from big pieces like this. Bastard. So just hang it back on the car just to check I'm going in the right direction, and we'll see, try and get the light to reflect on it a bit more. Still a fair bit of wobblies going on through here, so it's the painful part about not being taught by anyone, just doing it yourself. It's just a very slow process and a lot of a lot of struggling because you don't really know what you're doing, and you just think you're heading in the right direction, and it can turn to shit so fast. So it seems to be coming up okay though. I'm not disappointed with it. It's just a lot of effort. No light tricks, no 40 grit, zigzag, zebra stripes, bullshit. Show you all the imperfections, because that's the only way that I'm ever going to get better, is to just try and do better work. So no point lying to yourself and saying that it's mint when it's not Mickey Mouse. So it's got a lot of little lows and wobblies to chase along this area, as you can see with the file scratches. So just keep going with it, and it will only get better and better the more time I spend on it. So I've just pulled it back off to chuck it in that flat bar die. The line's just wanting to sink in a little bit in the middle, but really heading in the right direction. I'm really happy with how it's going. So I've just got it sitting on that flat bar now, which is the right shape for the body line, which I use to sharpen the front guard up, and just to get the sharpness back in it where it's dropped off a little bit, especially at the rear where it tapered right off. Not going to complain with that, really. It's coming up pretty fucking good. Bit more to chase in this area, and a bit up here. Kinda wish I had another set of hands, and I'd probably try and run it through the wheel just to blend this area a bit nicer, but can always go more and more and more. Just got to spend some more time on it. It's just all a learning curve as well for me, really. Figuring out how to planish and how to make panels like this large as well, because it's easy to make little patch panels for me, but to make big stuff like this is way more complex. This is a nightmare of a shape. Reverses suck. It's getting closer, but geez, that sucks. I think I've chose one of the hardest areas, to be honest, to continue on. Accept defeat on this one. I've got it close so many times, and the shape just keeps changing and changing and changing, so start again. I've made some hard shapes before, but Jesus Christ, that was a challenge. So to continue on with this nose cone, I need this lower section in the right spot. This car's had a hit on this side, so I'd like to at least get this area in the right spot, and then I can pull all the garden stuff out. But yeah, this little piece was holding on for dear life, which is weird too, because this one doesn't have the lip, doesn't have the extra turn down, which is really weird. Mine has it, this one has it, and this and mine are only 2 numbers apart, so I don't understand why this has the lip and that one doesn't, and it's not being cut off either. Really strange. But it's not damaged the front of this, so I'll use this one as the reference to make my nose cone lower. So yeah, mine and Bardan's both have this captive nut and plate. I don't actually know what bolts to it, but this one doesn't have it and never has had it. So whatever it was either an option or it was missed. Friday special or something. It's got me real curious on what that center section is, because it's even a different profile. It's only a 10mm fold, whereas this one is 20mm the entire way, and it's got holes in it. So I'd like to know what actually went there. Apparently the floor is not level in this corner, and the machine walks when you're using. Need to make this little return, so I just cut a window, start it off. Now to turn the lip on a panel like that, I learnt this little tool off Wayne McDonald from Automotive Panel Craft, and you just cut it to the depth, whatever you want the little flange to be. Happy days. So that was a life-saving tool, that one, when I made a rear beaver for an RX3 coupe about 4 years ago. So for the little flange on this, just Get an old coilover spanner, seem to have heaps of them. Let's put that on there. I'll turn it around the whole way. You just cut whatever depth you want the flange to be. So yeah, just cut it to the depth that you want. Happy days, you should just be able to bend it. So yeah, that starts your flange, and you just tap it around with the hammer and dolly to tidy it up. Okay, so flange, just got to stretch this area here to put the curve in it, and it will meet. All flanged, so set it on. Cool, make the other side. Usually use coilover spanners because you seem to have like 10 of them in toolboxes doing nothing. They're the perfect shape already, you don't have to cut any like reliefs or anything in there. You can just cut what distance you want and turn it on the flange. Done. One time tool, chuck it in your toolbox. You might use it again in a few years, but it's a cool thing to have. Okay, so that turns it to about a 45, and you just chuck it in hammer and dolly to go to the full 90. So not sure how it will work out, but I'm going to scribe the edge and then tip the edge along and leave like a little 10mm, maybe 20mm flange just along this, and I can do my infill panels. I'll see how it works. I'm not sure how it'll work yet. Well, that shows how far the nose is over on this one because of the crash damage. Line that up with the headlight. Oh boy. Something like the ends, if I'm going to cut them off and make them separate anyway, I like to see if I can try and make them on the same piece, even if I am going to cut them off, just to see how it reacts. Because if you're going to cut it off anyway, you may as well trial it, and if it works out, cool, you've made it on the piece. But if you're going to cut it off anyway, you may as well trial run it on the one piece. So the self-learning process of how to drive the English wheel has just been a tricky one for myself, but finally starting to get the hang of it. And once you set the arrangement of the panel, it pretty much tells you what it needs. It needs this area to be stretched, and it needs this area to be stretched. So seems to be finally like clicking in my brain of actually how to do these shapes, which is nice. So it's pretty close now. It's got a few, just the two corners now really to play with. See, it just doesn't want to sit there naturally. But small and manageable pieces seems to be the go for me, and to my experience is big enough to do an entire panel end to end, especially when I'm just learning how to drive the wheel. I don't really want a massive panel there when it's only just me and the weight of the panel itself is doing damage. So I'd rather just keep it all manageable and just do a little quilted blanket, as big of pieces as I can to manage while I do the whole shell. So they're stretched in those two areas here and here, and how it's fitting a lot better. So I can pretty much join it to this piece now and then planish the join. Then I've got this one piece, and I'll make the other side do the exact same after I square the nose up, pull it over, and then make that side, and then join that nose cone as one with this front piece. So I think I'm going to wrap things up here. I'm about 8 or 9 days in so far, and I'm pretty happy with the progress so far. It's all roughed out, and I've just got a lot of detailing to do. I've still got to like move this line a bit deeper. It tapers off a bit too early, so that'll come in a bit more. I've got all the planishing to do on the quarter panel, add the door edge, obviously join it to the dog leg and stuff like that. I've got to finish off the top section of this roof. The boot lid has a lip as well, but it is coming along. I'm a bit scared to put this in the wheel by myself for two reasons. One, I'm very inexperienced on the wheel, so I don't want to ruin it, and two, the wheel is pretty cheap as well, so I'd rather wait until I have a good English wheel before I try and planish this area up any further. But I nearly have one side of the car roughed out, so I'm pretty happy with that. This area has crash damage that's been punched in, so I've got to pull this area out, and also obviously like pry bar damage and stuff all on the quarter panel, but this front is pushed over as well, so the headlight is meant to be here, so it's got to be over a fair bit, and there is a fair bit of damage under there. Thankfully we're replacing mostly what's under this body shell, so I'm thankful that I've got a good car to reference off to get all my measurements and get good reference points to fix this crashed one.